So this whole project was inspired by this little gizmo, which essentially takes in 220 volts, and it basically uses this little potentiometer to control it to anything from 50 to 250 volts. And I thought there's a lot of uses for this, so I wanted to create something generic. So from this, the idea was, um, given a typical wall plug, I mean this is a standard assembly, um, if I could basically connect this, and here's the potentiometer here, so this is obviously live. Um, this is live. Let's see what else. This is also live. Let's see, where's your neutral? Neutral. Ground comes directly from the mains into here. So essentially, you are effectively saying anybody can plug in anything using your typical wall plug sort of scenario, and you could then use this little potentiometer to control how much voltage they're getting, anything from 50 to 250. It's still pretty much AC. So to do this, I then went off and designed a couple of things. It's gonna be a box that looks something like this. This is the bottom piece. It's got all kind of possibilities that you can mount. Initial idea was this essentially could go in here, but obviously on the inside. But you can just hot glue it if you want. Once this is assembled, it will look something like this, and this will come up on top here, except I'm forgetting there's a little gizmo that comes through here. So we're gonna go ahead and try and assemble this. So if you look at the pieces that you need to 3D print, it's basically this piece over here, this piece over here, the bottom piece there. Yeah. Plus there's one more that basically will clip the table, this particular cable, tight onto these little holes here so it doesn't move around. So let's get started. So the first component to assembly you need to make sure you're getting right is, after printing this top piece, make sure it clips on nicely like so. And you can use, you can just glue it around, or you can make use of some 3 or 4 millimeter screws over here to hold it tight. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Just you look at that. So what I've gone and done is use these very tiny, very handy sort of screws or nuts, and these are the bolts that side, nuts this side, just to hold this in. What we're not going to do is we're going to try and work this into this position so it doesn't actually move around. So I'm thinking, instead of screwing it on here, which it's got its little 4 of these where it goes, I'm gonna rather just hot glue it into this piece, and then put everything together. And obviously we still need to get this in place. Right, there we go. I think it's going to be nice and tight. Yep, it does seem to be in place. I'm just worried about situations where this gets too hot. What happens to the hot glue? I suppose time will tell. So the next phase of this is where we're supposed to somehow work the body into this, but before we do that, maybe we need to set out the bottom piece, which is this plate over here. Now I've actually prepared to have some little hooves installed on here, so maybe let's start and get those installed first. So I got a hold of these lovely little feet, and obviously this step is completely optional. So I got these from a local sort of electronics shop, and once installed, in fact this one I haven't fastened yet, once installed, if I could get this fastened first, it then looks something like this, which can sit quite firmly on the ground and not move around. Now for the last piece, so I've just put this superimposer on top just to give an idea how it's going to look. There's this little hole here. It's not as big as it should be, and the idea is you should be able to squeeze the wire into it. You can see my wire is quite thick, but you should be able to just squeeze the wire into it, and it needs to be tight so it doesn't rip off. And number two, your potentiometer here basically has a little hole. It pushes out here, and this whole mechanism comes on top here. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and obviously once you've got this in place, you then have these screws that they should be self-tappers. This is 3mm, so get anything more than 3mm, but don't go overboard, otherwise you're going to break the plastic. So it's almost in place. Just wanted to mention one more thing before I close it up. There's this little gizmo here that basically clamps onto this cable. Make sure it's firmly pushed to the ground. Have I broken it? I think slightly, but it should still do its job. You can see it fits on here, and you can connect it up using very small self-tapper screws. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Right, so I've been fighting with it offline, and hopefully it is in place now, and I'm hoping I haven't missed anything here. Actually I have, because this needs to be in between, so I need to unscrew it, put this in between these two lids, and then put it back on again. Don't make the same mistake. There we go, winning at last. So one of the last bits is remembering this little mouse hole over here. This little mouse hole has to come over the wire, almost like clamping it in. You're going to have to just use a little bit of force, depending on the gauge of the wire that you're using. I'm going to just pinch it a little bit with a pair of pliers so it comes through. I'm going to go ahead and start assembling this together. Here's how we're looking so far. This is kind of in, but maybe not as firm. You might want to just come back with your wood clamps and just clamp it in and just glue it in, just to make sure it's nice and secure. Then what you're gonna have to do is come in with a bunch of self-tappers, ones that look like this. These aren't too big, so let me just quickly measure these. So really these are, so let's just reset this thing, make sure it's at 0.0. These are about 364, 365, just, you know, over 3, but not too much, not too big, otherwise you're gonna break this plastic over here. I tried to make this as big as far as I could possibly make it, this just to accommodate any sort of resistance. The big self-tapping screws actually coming through, but there's obviously a limit. I mean, this is plastic. So we're going to go ahead and mount all of these, and the bottom piece hopefully should be done. So bottom piece all done. Next up is your potentiometer. It needs to show up at least partially here, and you need to lock it into position using a little nut that comes with it, I suppose. The only bad thing about this unit, and I'm talking about this unit, is this doesn't come with a knob, so you're going to have to buy this from your local sort of electronics shop separately. So now we're almost on the brink of getting it sorted, so we just need to get this buddy in and then get the cover in and test drive it. Hopefully it works. Good people, here's how it looks so far. Oh gosh, I think it's just coming out beautifully. And when you look at the positioning, so the mains will come from this side, whatever you plug will go the other direction, so the positioning of this is quite strategic. Potentiometer is actually sitting this side, on the side, away from the wires coming from this direction to that direction. So and I see there's a little bit of lifting up here. I suppose components are just a little bit too tight inside. Now for the last piece, basically clip on this little gizmo that comes in as part of the setup, and this is it. This is it. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Oh, one last thing. Almost forgot. You can then get any type of knob of your choice. So I've chosen this one. It was a choice between this, that, and that one. I chose a smaller one, smaller version of this. It just has a little hex screw here that you can use to control it, and this is my 0, which is equivalent to 50 volts, and obviously as you increase you're going more towards 250 volts, and that, dear friends, is the end of this one. Thank you. Thanks for watching.